So I'm speaking with Brian Concannon with the Institute for Justice and Democracy in Haiti. Brian, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for your time. So I want to just kind of jump right into this, if you don't mind. Why has Baby Doc returned now to Haiti, and what do you think the role of the U.S., France, and Canada has played in orchestrating his return?
It's hard to say exactly why he's coming. There are a lot of different theories out there. One thing that he has said, or that his lawyers have said, is that this is part of him reacquiring some kind of political power, including running for president. A second one, a lot of people say he looks ill, and so perhaps this was his chance to come before his health deteriorated. A third possibility is that this is about getting access to $6 million that's been frozen by the Swiss government from his Swiss bank account. And he's perhaps trying to get the charges in Haiti against him dropped, which would allow him to return to Switzerland and collect that money.
And I read recently, I think just last night, that Michel Montas just recently filed a lawsuit against him for crimes against humanity. Do you have any update on that you can share? Because I know a lot of us have just been concerned that the only thing thus far that had really been charged has just been charges around fraud and embezzlement. And we didn't think that, many of us, I think subjectively, just didn't think that, given his historical record, that was kind of suitable as a charge to be charged against. So we're just trying to understand where things are at and give our audience a kind of an update on where these charges are at, and then how the system works in Haiti. Because I know a lot of folks have been confused that he went and he was charged, but now it's up to a judge to even see if he's going to be tried. So people are trying to understand that as well.
Sure. Those are lots of good questions. The current status is that has been charged on the embezzlement charges, and there are a whole bunch of complaints against him. There are complaints filed back when he left in the 80s, but there's new ones coming in every day. Michel Montas, who was exiled, and her husband Jean-Claude was exiled, and their radio station was destroyed. Other people, Alex Fils-Aimé, who's a former speaker of the Haitian House of Deputies, who I believe spent maybe 10 years in political prisons under the Duvaliers, and several other political prisoners, people who lost family members who were killed or disappeared, are coming forward. And there's certainly a lot of those cases. I think it's a legitimate legal strategy for the prosecutors to initially focus on the financial crimes, because in many ways those are easier to prove. The documents aren't fading, and people's memories of the political violence, those have faded over 25 years, and unfortunately a lot of the victims and witnesses to that have passed away. So I think that the financial crimes in many ways are easy to do. They're also easier because the Haitian government, over the course of the last 25 years, has actually been preparing a case, and it's in very good shape. Wouldn't take too much to get into trial. But of course, that's not going to satisfy most of the victims of Mr. Duvalier. Most people want to see him stand trial for the killings, the disappearances, the tortures, and the political prisons. And I think it is essential that the Haitian justice system take those. But it would certainly be part of a good legal strategy to start off with the easier cases, get a basis for detaining him, and then work on the harder ones. If you remember, Al Capone was not put in jail for bank robbery. He was put in jail for tax evasion.
Right.
Sometimes the financial cases can do what other cases can't.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. I think that'll really answer a lot of questions we've been fielding here on our side, as a number of different kind of activists who've been doing solidarity work have been trying to just understand that. So that'll help tremendously.
You also asked about the involvement of France, Canada, and the U.S. in his arrival, and that's a good question. I didn't answer that. Mm-hmm. That's a good question. France, I think, is a little bit easier. He was able to board an Air France flight with an expired passport, and so that obviously indicates that somebody in the French government gave him special assistance. We don't know to what extent that was done high up. We have heard that the U.S. government, the French government initially claimed that it did not know of his departure until he arrived in Haiti, which seemed fairly unlikely. Since then, the U.S. government has said that they actually got a phone call from the French government about an hour before the plane landed, saying he was on his way. So the French government, I think, had some advance notice. We just don't know how much. It's hard to say what the U.S. involvement is. I think they might be telling the truth about not knowing. I don't really see the U.S. interest in bringing Baby Doc in right now. The U.S. certainly did support the Duvaliers, both father and son, very generously while they were ruling. But I don't think that they would see him as an effective proxy right now. One of the things that the U.S. is trying to do through these elections is try to establish a runoff between two right-wing candidates. One is Mirlan Manigat, and the other is Michel Martelly. And I think the U.S. would probably feel that either Ms. Manigat or Mr. Martelly would be an effective right-wing proxy governing Haiti, and that they wouldn't need to have the disruptions of trying to restore Jean-Claude Duvalier to power.
Now, speaking on the elections, there's rumors circulating around that there have been threats against Preval for possibly, deposing him or deporting him. Some of this was reported on Democracy Now!, I believe, yesterday. Are there is any of those allegations, can that be substantiated, or is it purely just speculation and rumor at this point?
They're fairly well substantiated. There was a Brazilian diplomat, Ricardo Seitenfus, who was the head of the Organization of American States mission in Haiti. And it's interesting because the OAS itself has played, over the last year and a half, has very much been carrying water for the U.S. Administration, and especially with regard to elections. But Mr. Seitenfus gave an interview just before the new year where he was very much criticized, gave a series of interviews where he was criticizing the international community's role in Haiti. And one of the things he said was that he was at a meeting where top international officials were gathered, and that one of the things they were discussing was pushing President Preval out and forcing him overseas. He was outraged at that, and he was outraged that no one else was outraged that they were discussing that. So it's certainly, if Mr. Seitenfus is telling the truth, and no one has denied that those conversations took place. So if he is telling the truth, then I think it was at least discussed at a very high level, and that is considered an appropriate topic for discussion at a very high level, which is of course disturbing.
And related to that, where do things stand now with the elections and the potential runoff, now that Preval is really challenging the outcomes in the report of the Organization of American States? What is the next step?
Well, the next step is to have runoffs and to choose who's going to do that runoff. One of the things that a lot of people have been talking about that Duvalier does is it distracts attention from the elections. On Tuesday, the Electoral Council actually rejected the OAS effort to redo the elections. Basically, what happened was the November 28th elections were problematic for a few reasons. They're problematic because of what happened on that day: widespread fraud, widespread abstention. But they're really more problematic because of what happened in the year before, and that was the exclusion of parties that could effectively challenge the ruling party, most especially the exclusion of Femi Lavalaza, which was by far his most popular party. And most Haitians just didn't show up at those elections because they know a sham election when they see it, and which was actually fine with the United States because they felt that if most Haitians, which are progressive, did not show up, they felt that the conservative candidates winning a tiny percentage of support of the overall voters would be able to have a high enough tally to get into the runoff. And that's more or less what happened. We have Mirlan Manigat is listed as the first place finisher, and then the second, according to the official Electoral Council results, is Jude Celestin, who's the president's candidate. And the president handpicked the Electoral Council, so a lot of people said, well Mr. Celestin's getting into second place was fraudulent, and that the third place finisher, who was close behind in the official results, was Michel Martelly. He should be allowed into the runoff. The interesting international community, the OAS, and the United States, they've been pushing that solution of removing Mr. Celestin and having Julian Monigat go into the runoff. The Haitian people say you cannot come up with a good result from a bad election, and what you need to do is to start over and have a credible electoral council on new elections where all qualified parties are allowed to run, all the voters are allowed to vote.
And just finally, for our audience, President Jean Bertand Aristides yesterday issued a small note saying that he is prepared to return anytime today, tomorrow, anytime in the near future. What are the prospects of his return, especially in light of now Duvalier's return? How likely is that, and what are the impediments still remaining for his return?
It's hard to say how likely his return is. That's not the first time he's said he's ready to return. He did so right after the earthquake. He's said so several times since his exile, or at least since the return of democracy in 2006. And to this point, the Haitian government's statements have been, we'll let him back in when the time is right, and they have apparently not determined yet that the time is right. The impediments are twofold. First is the formal impediment, the fact that President Aristide does not have a passport, does not have a current passport. He has a diplomatic passport, but that expired probably 5 or 6 years ago. And Pretoria to Port-au-Prince is a long way. You need to transit through several countries, and so you certainly need a passport to make that trip. I think that President Aristide rightly believes he won't get the same preferential treatment that Mr. Duvalier apparently got. The second impediment is that there's several powerful countries who do not want President Aristide to come back, including our own. There was on Saturday there was a WikiLeaks memo released. There was a cable from a State Department cable talking about the extensive efforts that U.S. officials made to make sure that President Aristide was kept in South Africa and kept quiet. And it's kind of stunning because these were high-level discussions between U.S. and Brazilian and U.S. and South African officials, and right at the top of the agenda of discussions with fairly large countries where our relations are, there's a lot going on in our relationships, but right at the top of the agenda was making sure that President Aristide was kept in South Africa and not allowed to be politically active.
Thank you for that, Brian. In parting, how can people get involved in the work of the Institute for Justice and Democracy in Haiti to support the ongoing litigation and those are the advocates on the ground?
There's a couple of things you can do. One, you can join our mailing list, and you can do that on our website, which is www.haitijustice.org. We also have a half-hour for Haiti action alert system, where about once a month we put out an alert urging people to take a quick educational and concrete action to advance justice in Haiti. The third is we obviously need financial assistance like most nonprofits, and any financial support we get is appreciated. I'd also like to make a shout out to an organization in the Bay Area that is highly effective, and that's the Haiti Action Committee. I think that people wanting to get involved in the Bay Area should certainly reach out to the Haiti Action Committee.
Again, Brian, thank you for your time and thank you for your work.
Thanks for covering this.
Thank you.
Take care.